Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you about an issue that came up with a coaching client that I was dealing with. And she was at her wit's end with regards to what is transpiring in her relationship. The relationship wasn't functioning. She tried almost everything she could possibly think about, and they just weren't getting any traction. They were, to say the least, probably like housemate or roommates, and she wanted to improve the relationship, and she found it difficult, very, very difficult. In fact, she said one of the things she struggled with is that her husband would say that she doesn't respect him and she doesn't listen to him, but she says, Hilton, if I listen to him, he just goes on and on. And by the time he gets to 3 to 5 minutes in, I've forgotten what he said at the beginning. And if I can't remember, then he gets even more upset because I'm not listening. So I talked her through the process of how to be an effective listener. I think what happens to many people, all of us, at some point in time, when other people are speaking, our minds have gone ahead of them and have solutions for them. Or they, as in the case of many couples, as they're listening to their spouse, corrects the spouse. So if the spouse says something that was not exactly how they remembered the incident to be, they would try and correct that. And when they try and correct that, it distracts, because then another argument goes off on a tangent, occurs, and they just spiral out of control. So what I suggested to her, as he goes on, at a point that you find your mind wandering, because some people have very active minds, just say to him, look, I know you're telling me a lot of things. Let me just see if I could understand what you're saying. So you're telling me, and give him a summary of what you have heard him say and what you understand him to be saying, and then check with him, did I get that right? Now, what that does is it gives him a breather, and it signals to him that you're actually listening to him. And most people want to be A, listened to, and B, understood. And if you actually got what he's saying right, it takes the pressure off him, makes him feel listened to, it makes him feel validated and valued, and it encourages the participation of the conversation. And then you will need to ask him a follow-up question. Is there anything else? So you give him a chance to explain more, or go into greater depth, or say what else is bothering him, without necessarily shutting him down, shutting him off, or get into a position where he thinks that you are not listening, so what he's saying is unimportant, and he feels that you are disregarding him. Well, it went as well as it could go until she actually got some feedback from him that she said was very saddening. And here is what I would like to share with you that she indicated, because I'd like to explore that point in a little bit more detail. She said that yes, they had the conversation. Yes, she reflected that, that's reflective listening. And he said a couple of things that blew her mind, really. She didn't even know that was happening in his head. And one of the things he said was that he feels that she doesn't like him. In fact, I'm putting it nicely, he actually said that he feels that she hates him. And that shocked her. But as she probed more, because sometimes I even told her, tell me more, help me to understand. She recognized that she is such a clean, organized, fussy person, that she's always correcting him, always picking up. And even if she doesn't say anything, you could see it on her face. And hence, he seemed to sense that she's just creating a situation where he's not allowed to be himself, even if it's a little bit messy. So brings me to a very important point. Do you know how your spouse views you? Do you know how your spouse experiences you? And do you know that the way they are responding to you is based on how they perceive you in their head. So unless you have these clear conversations, and unless your spouse feels safe enough to express these to you, you will be constantly fighting, thinking one thing in your head. He or she is thinking another thing in their head, and you will be constantly missing each other. And so, how do we go about fixing that? First of all, nobody likes to be around someone who's constantly fussy, constantly micromanaging, constantly upset. We want to be around people who are pleasant, at least minimum, who's pleasant to be around. And what happens is that many times the husband makes up every excuse to be out of the house. He goes away at weekends and he spends little time with her in the house. And so my question to you, are you a pleasant person? Are you a lovable person? Are you an enjoyable person to be around? And if you attend to these, you will find the atmosphere changes and your spouse would be a lot more magnetized to you. If you want more information around this particular issue, let me know in the comments.